Good afternoon. This is Richard Cheng with the Sativa Segment, episode 37. Before we get started, I just want to know that Ritter Spencer Cheng is fueling this particular episode. It's a local law firm based here in Dallas, Texas. It's a full-service business law firm. If you want to know a little bit more about it, feel free to go to ritterspencercheng.com. We have John Bowman here with us today, and he is the owner of Bluebonnet Labs, correct?
Correct, yep.
Do you like the blue coloration in the back?
Great. Looks great.
It matches the theme of your lab. So you're Canadian.
Correct, yeah, from Canada originally.
Yeah, and you play a little hockey back in the day?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, when you're Canadian, it's like our football, so pretty much everybody does it.
Yeah. Now you're from the part of Canada that's very French influenced.
Yep, right above New York State, not far from Quebec, right on the Quebec-Ontario border. We were talking a bit earlier, my mom's from
And you can
Montreal.
kind of get by.
Yeah, I know a lot of words in French, but...
Fighting words that you would use during your hockey days. Now, my understanding is that you spent a good part of your career in the telecom business or telecommunications business. So you came from corporate America. Tell me a little bit about your experience in corporate America.
Sure. I worked with corporate America. The short story of it all is my dad, he was a really smart guy, was an engineer for Nortel.
Okay.
And
now they were based here in Richardson.
They were, right? Yep. They were, yeah. They were all over. They were the biggest company in Canada for quite a while, but they're actually gone now.
Yeah.
But he was an engineer for telecom system, and long story short, randomly he was part of selling off a telecom line, and a gentleman from Fort Worth ended up buying it. And I was pretty young at the time, and he came up to Canada to meet my dad and that type of stuff, and I ended up meeting him. His name was Gabor, and that's what brought me to Texas. So I had really done that from 20 to, from 20 to like 15 years at least. So
okay,
yeah.
So in came the cannabis endeavor.
Yeah. So my other business was doing pretty well. It was kind of outgrowing me a little bit, so I hired some new people in pretty big roles, and I was stepping on their toes, and it was either use us or don't. And I said, I'll let them do it. So I was looking for something else to do, and the 2018 hemp bill had just been passed, and that's what kind of got me somewhat looking into it in some sort of aspect.
Why did you choose labs?
Well,
because when the 2018 Farm Bill passed, a lot of people went in different directions, right?
Yeah.
Some people, they're finally following their passion of growing, right?
Yeah.
So now they can grow. And then some people went down the processing path. Some people went down the retail path. But you chose to go into lab testing.
Yeah, my original theory was actually going in processing, actually.
Okay.
So,
and thank God you didn't.
Yeah,
as you
I know.
said.
I agree. At least it'd be pretty tough. But so Andy Stewart is a guy he's from Oklahoma.
Okay.
And we have a mutual friend. Actually, he's a friend of mine too now. But I went up and spent some time with him, just kind of figured it all out. He was doing everything. He had a processing, facility. They were retailing it up there, all sorts of stuff. And during it all, he's always on the phone with the lab or taking some stuff over to the lab. And I kind of looked back at it and thought, well, I actually went into it. I thought it'd be less risky.
Boy, were you wrong.
Yeah. Backfired a little bit because it's been pretty tough.
How much is it? I mean, it's buying the equipment, and depending on what state you're in, you may need a lab license or some type of registration. That's the case here in Texas. You need to be registered with the Texas Department of Agriculture, right?
Yep. In order to do that.
So that's an expensive endeavor. So help me understand how much capital, how capital intensive it is to get it started.
Yeah, I would say $2 million would be pretty light. And Initially, we got
Or what are we talking about? Like a refurbished machine, or
refurbs.
Okay.
You know, realistically, at the end of the day, you need about 5 machines to run the bulk of the tests,
okay,
and then you need all the ancillary stuff,
okay.
and that adds up as well. You know, you just don't realize the cost of it all. And
Now, why 5 machines? Why do you need 5 machines?
just certain types of machines do certain things, like potencies run on one.
Okay.
You know, you've got pesticides and mycotoxins on another machine.
Got it.
You've got heavy metals on one, and then you've got terpenes and residual solvents on another.
Okay. So each machine does something a little bit different, and it
Correct.
serves a different purpose. I would assume that to run one machine for one purpose, it may have a different cost factor compared
Absolutely.
to something else.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. You know, the pesticide mycotoxin machine is the most expensive, just due to the capabilities. And then usually it's a little harder to operate, but I don't operate any of it. So, but.
Yeah, we were talking about this, right? I think the original intent was for you to just own it. Now you're owner
just
operator.
open it.
So if I call you at the lab, you may very well be the person that's answering it.
If you walk in, I'll probably answer. Be at the front. I'm receptionist to owner to customer relations, that type of stuff. But,
Is it hard promoting this business in the cannabis industry?
It seems to be. The issue you have now is that with the way it is, at least with Texas, we're competing with people that can ship their product anywhere in the country to be tested.
Right.
So, there's that issue where, getting your name out there too is pretty tough. We've tried, we go to some conventions, that type of stuff. But, I had a phone call from a friend today, and he mentioned a guy in his building that is manufacturing drinks in Arlington. We have no idea. So we paid for some lists a few times, but they're really not what they're worth at the end of the day. So, but. Now,
when you're testing potency, let's walk through the steps. When you get a sample, is it, or you get what kind of how big is usually the sample that you get that you're testing?
Usually not overly large. It doesn't take a whole lot to actually test, and it also depends on if they're just testing potency. You don't really need much at all. So like a 2 grams, would suffice.
Okay, so you're given a sample. Let's just say a couple grams. You run it through the potency machine, and it spits out results.
Yep.
Somebody has to read it.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, not me. So we receive it. It comes in with a chain of custody. We enter it in the LIMS software. Take a photo of it, whatnot, goes back in the lab, they prep it. Each test has a different procedure on how to prep. And then potency, they just put in the HPLC, and, you get your numbers and then generate a COA from there.
Okay, so it spits out results. You have staff that reads it. What if it reads hot? Let's just say you're testing hemp. What happens then?
If it depends on the type of test. If it's a TDA official, like an official sample, that one's a little different. Like that one has to go through the TDA. So if you, for example, want to do a grow, you go to them and you get your license to grow. I don't know as much on that, but you need to tell them like your acreage, how many plants you're trying to grow, whatnot. And then when you're ready to test, you actually contact the TDA and say, hey, we're ready. And then they have a third-party sampler come out. You have to coordinate that. And there's not a lot of them right now because that, it didn't really turn out to be what they initially wanted it to be.
But your lab can do it.
We can do it. It's just there's not a lot of people doing it anymore, and there's not a lot of samplers as well. So
now, is your staff going out there to collect anything at all?
We used to do that. We did have staff that had sampler license. I actually had one for the first year we were open, but it's just wasn't really feasible. And now there's about 3 or 4 of them. So we help the labs actually get in touch with them. Then we get an email from the TDA saying, hey, here's all your they have their own chain of custody and that type of stuff. We then send that off to the sampler and they go sample it, and then it comes to us. And that one, now if that fails, we report it to the TDA, regardless of what the results are. We report that to the TDA. Now, if an individual comes in and says, "Hey, I'd like to test this," and it's hot, we give them the results, and then regardless of how the results are, we handle the destruction the same.
So how does the information get on the QR codes, and who processes that process?
So our every lab will have a LIMS, which is Laboratory Information Management Software.
Okay.
And there's quite a few different companies out there. So if you sent us a sample, we take the information provided on the form, we create your account with that, it would have your email or whoever. Mm-hmm. And then you get an email putting you on the portal where you can see all your results. Now, you would get an email, like each individual test as well comes in its own email, but you can always log in the portal, and that's where your QR codes are. Mm-hmm. And, for manufacturing, they need to have that on their product somewhere, and then it needs to make sure that it works back to the COA. So.
Now, I know this is a very general question, so answer it, the best way you can. What makes a good lab, and what makes a quote bad lab?
Probably, most states require a laboratory to have ISO.
Okay.
Shockingly, there's a few that don't.
And just for the audience, what's ISO?
ISO is just an international standard. Like, it's not even for necessarily laboratories. Like 17025 is the denomination for it.
It's an accreditation, more or less.
It's a third party.
Yep. It verifies your quality of your testing methodologies.
Yeah. So they come in, like when we initially open the lab, you have to order equipment, find a space, hire a staff, order all the standards we were discussing earlier, and dial the equipment in. And I'll be honest, when I initially was looking at getting involved in this, I assumed, you could just take something and put it in a machine that would give you a reading for, whatever you want to. I thought one machine did everything, but it was a long process to get open. We were close to a year to get open.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So between finding the location, getting not one, but in your case, 5 different pieces of machine, getting your registration with
getting staff,
and everything else,
all your SOPs, At the end of the day, they come in and check, like you have to show them, here's our SOPs for everything, right? And they want to make sure you're doing it. Then they give you, audit everything you're doing. They'll randomly look at some tests you do to verify that it is what it is. But it's mainly just doing all your SOPs are where they should be, and you're doing all your.
Well, give me an example of that you've come across where it's a lab and they're testing, and you've either heard about it or seen it yourself, and you're like, that's a bad way of doing things.
Well, where we run into a little bit is there's a few labs that don't.
Who shall remain nameless?
Yeah, I'm not going to use any lab names today, but they.
Not today.
Yeah, they don't. They don't have ISO, and I don't understand why you would open a lab and not have ISO.
Now, you have your DEA registration in addition to ISO.
Yeah.
And my understanding with that is when you're DEA registered, the level of security that's in place for your lab is just it creates a more secure environment.
Correct. So my opinion would be ISO's more. You're doing what your equipment's running the way it should, your procedures are the way they are, and the results you're putting out are correct. DEA that's not really what they're doing. They're wanting to make sure the security, the expense of cameras. We have all our samples in a sample storage room, and every employee has their own badge. So, you're tracked kind of in the lab everywhere you go. Yeah. And you have to maintain those records for years. And, at any point in time, if they want to see your logs, you have to keep all that stuff. So the cost, that's more security concern as opposed to ISO's more, you're result driven. You're doing things correct.
So how do you charge?
We charge basically by, if potency's one price, full panel's another price.
Full panel being kind of like the catch-all, potency, microbials, everything else.
Yeah, it's getting tough now because, there's talk, right now of on a federal level, but it's more sounds like it's going to be restructuring it from a, 3 to a 2 or 1, declassifying a little bit. But since the federal government hasn't really come out and said, all right, test for this, test for these exact, here's what pesticides you want to test for, and so on for residual solvents and along the lines. But so the states have come up and they're all kind of implementing their own testing requirements. So, if we have to ask the client now, like, where's your product? Where are you selling most of your product? Because Louisiana's got a separate set of testing than Florida and Georgia, and they're all coming up with their own. So it's getting tough to keep up with because there's no general standardized testing from the federal government that is a catch-all for everybody.
Got it. So I'm going to ask you more of a sensitive question.
Sure.
Maybe not to Bluebonnet, but just the industry alone. Rumor has it, through the grapevine, of course, that sometimes lab results can be manipulated. Sometimes lab results are not reliable because depending on who's doing the testing. Is that true from your perspective, one? And then secondarily, if it is, to what extent does that mean? Yeah,
I imagine they would, when we were talking about ISO and non-ISO.
Yeah.
We'll have someone, fortunately, if they do this, a lot of times too, like we don't want to be looked at like the enemy.
Yeah.
So we'll have somebody who's buying some, say, flour to sell, and they have a COA from the guy who's selling it to them. Well, if they actually send it to us and they're like, hey, we just want to verify this before we, purchase it, we see numbers that are nowhere near what, they're nowhere near the 0.3. They're way off.
Right.
I think those labs are kind of set up with the idea of maybe that's what they're representing, like sellers who are not really, giving proper results. But I mean, there's always going to be some margin of error, and maybe the way you prep a product or, how it got to you, certain things, temperature can change things a little bit, but realistically, you shouldn't be, major gaps in testing. So I think those labs are just set up to, give people a piece of paper to kind of sell something that it's really not.
Okay,
I don't know why.
I'm going to go step further.
Sure.
Because that's my job.
Yeah.
I'm going to go step further. In your opinion, do you think that certain cannabis businesses, I don't want to call it bribery. That's such an ugly word.
Yeah.
But they influence the testing lab's results through either monetary benefits or some type of other ancillary benefit to manipulate the outcome?
Possibly.
So would you say it's possible, but maybe not probable?
No, it's happening for sure. It's happening.
Okay, so here we go. It's happening.
But again, I would probably fall back to the labs that don't have the proper accreditation.
Yeah, and we're not naming names, right? But let's also not be naive towards one another. Because it is happening, and you just said it, right? And I know it's happening. You know it's happening. How often do you think that happens?
Well, it depends. It kind of depends who your client is too, right?
Yeah.
The bigger, some people do it right, and some people just don't care if they do it right.
That's right.
It also depends kind of the product, like drinks. They're, you're taking nano powder and you're making a drink. Now, compared to a plant where, it's organically grown, there's going to be differentials there. But someone making a drink should have a pretty good idea of what their numbers are going to come out at the end of the day, especially, we'll test the nano for them and then they're like, okay. And it's almost like a recipe at that point. Now, flower, it's obviously certainly different because it's, organic and grown, but yeah, I mean, there's people that will probably use, again, some of these labs that we've seen because they're selling someone a product. I mean, my personal guess would be if it's someone has a whole bunch of proper, over 0.3 marijuana, and they have a lot of it, maybe that, it's almost like a commodity for these people, I'm sure, at some point. So maybe if they need to sell it, so they get a COA saying it's, point whatever, and it's not what it is, and then.
And I would think also it depends on the client, right? If it's a one-off client, then that may be a very different narrative versus a client that's giving this lab tons and tons of business at volume, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it would be pretty hard to have a client of size risk, all that for, what could be. There's pretty big penalties that would come with all that, but that's kind of a issue you have too, right? Like, say you have a guy who owns a store and he doesn't spend money or he doesn't want to have it retested just for the cost. And, depending on how much he's buying, testing's, depending how you look at it, I don't think it's overly expensive, especially compared to, I know we talked earlier, you're in, medical testing is, we're much cheaper than what that's at, but they've been around longer, so they factor that in the price. But, a guy who has a local shop, if he's buying a small amount, may not want to spend the money to have it tested, and you're just going off COA, and they're not going to care if someone comes in your store and they raid you or they send it all off and they do their own testing. I don't think they're going to care that you bought it with a COA from a lab never talked to or never knew where they were, and there's also even labs giving results that people want, but also if you're not using the QR code properly or whatnot, someone could just adjust a COA. You can manufacture a COA as well. So you really want to, not only us, but you want to definitely know the lab you're using and have a good trust factor with the lab.
That's right. Now you mentioned the word raids, so let's talk about that. As you probably know, and you've probably heard, it's been on the news. Particularly in the city of Allen, there's been a number of raids where retail shops have been raided and their products have been confiscated, or certain products have. And now, has your lab been involved with any of the testing or verification as part of that criminal process?
It's certainly, we had some owners contact us afterwards.
You did?
Of stores.
Okay. What exactly was their request for you to do?
So they manufacture nothing. We had a couple send in every SKU they had, and we ran potency on them, and he just wanted to make sure that everything in his shop was what it was represented as.
Okay.
And it's typically not. It's typically higher than.
Has your lab been hired by like a governmental agency or a police station to essentially verify?
No, we've been used in some court cases for people that had bought the vape, for example, was one, and he was pulled over and they sent it off and they tested it and it failed, and they came to us and said, hey, we bought this under the pretense it was this, and so we've tested for some defendants in certain circumstances.
Okay.
But the issue too is depending what, like a vape, for example, especially if it's Delta 8, at the time was that converts when it's heated, or THCA.
Right.
So it's a slippery slope where, forensic labs are probably, I don't know what the percentage of cannabis testing they would do, but I'm sure it's certainly not the majority. It's probably the minority of what they're testing. So, we have our DA license, so we could test other, illegal drugs, but we don't. So you don't know specifically how to handle it. You could kind of, give bad results too on their end as well. So,
Yeah.
Or when they bought it, that the THCA was, it was legal. But once it converts over, when it's heated, the product, you could have very well bought a legal product, and then, after using it, it became illegal. So
Have you been seeing that more and more in the last couple of years?
the majority of our testing though is, we have some pretty good clients in manufacturing, and that's mainly what we do. The Allen raids though did, that did give us some boost where a couple people would send in some products and see, they want to know where their potency at. Yeah. Okay. And again, we actually had a Houston news channel contact us, and they bought some products, and they just randomly went in and sent us some product, and we tested them.
Oh, the news channel itself bought some products? Just as it was just kind of a pilot program, or like a dry run or something?
I should be giving her a shout out, but I can't recall her name at the moment.
Is it the Houston Chronicle or something like that?
No, it was like Houston Channel 7 or something like that. She contacted us and said, hey, well, I'm going to go buy some product. We'll send it to you. And, I'm just kind of curious. This was when, the bill was vetoed. And so, it was getting a lot more traction in the news. And I believe they sent in maybe 7 products.
Wow.
And they were, I believe 2 of them passed, but the majority of them, like 4 or 5 of them didn't. But also too, it was saying like, if the new federal laws, they worked that into to open the government up, they, I guess, put that in the bill. And so she was asking, based off the new rules, when they come into effect in, I don't know how many days at this point, but next November, what would they be? Would they be legal? And they're not even close. Like, it's just bringing it down to the federal levels they're talking about now is, it will kill the industry.
Are you concerned about that, the change with the come next November?
It's tough.
That has to be a concern.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely,
think.
absolutely.
So.
But honestly, the federal bill, I'm not. It has a lot of time, and it's been a wild learning experience for sure. I didn't realize how much manipulation government there would be. It was, I can't recall his name, but it's from Kentucky. He was the one who was the head of the, putting this in this bill, the federal.
Oh, you're talking about Mitch McConnell?
McConnell, pardon me. Yeah, thank you. And, which is crazy because he was he was groundbreaking to get it passed originally. Yeah. And then,
I think his approach was always going to be the promoting hemp. One, it benefits his home state. Right. That's one. And then secondarily, his approach was primarily on the industrial hemp side, promoting fabrics and everything else. And it was, but once the 2018 Farm Bill passed, very creative and smart people started finding loopholes around things and said, well, hey, this is how you wrote the bill. If that's how you're going to write it, we're going to take advantage of it.
True. But they didn't do anything about it for quite a while.
Nope, they didn't.
Again, I don't want to sound too negative on politics or politicians, but they're supposed to be representatives. Yeah. And they represent the people. They don't represent the people. They represent who's writing the biggest check at the end of the day. And,
or self-preservation for re-election.
Absolutely. Very good point too. But, the drinks are becoming very popular now.
Yep.
And it seems like it must be cutting into big alcohol because,
It
Kentucky
is.
also has bourbon.
Have you seen
I
the
have.
alcohol sales?
Yeah.
That's numbers in the last 3 years compared to before.
Yeah. So I'm sure, bourbon is all, Kentucky, right? So,
Yeah, bourbon. Well, yeah, Kentucky, Tennessee, and all that.
So all that area, but it sounded like, you can follow where this comes from. So,
Yeah.
McConnell had got a substantial check from the
Right.
alcohol business to throw it in a bill to open the government back up. I mean, where's the, correlation there? And, even
Do
in
you
Texas,
think that the same thing happened here in Texas when
I think they tried it.
Senate Bill
Absolutely.
3 was originally proposed?
Yep, I think they absolutely tried.
Do you
it.
think somebody got a check by the alcohol people?
Yeah, I mean, you can look it up. I mean, Dan Patrick, I didn't know a whole lot. I mean, obviously I was aware of who he was and whatnot, but I couldn't figure that one out. And then when you find out what's going on, where the money's coming from, it sort of all makes sense because.
Those were rhetorical questions.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, I don't mind talking about that one a little bit. That was one of the biggest movements for us because, we're in Texas. This was the first lab that we opened in Texas, and that's the only one we have now. But that's really, and it's obviously a big market. And I was, it's just unsettling, right? Because again, going back to, you're supposed to represent the people, but I mean, the people have said, there's all these polls out there, and he had got these skewed polls at the end of the day that he paid money for, but Texas as a whole wants it regulated. They're telling you what they want, but they're not listening to you. And I give Governor Abbott a ton of credit. He vetoed a bill, and being from Canada, you're learning a lot about. I have spent a lot of time here, but
he held his ground.
He did.
And
Absolutely.
And he's. I was surprised that one, he vetoed it, and then we went through not one but two different special sessions.
Yep.
And nothing really happened.
Yeah. Well, what happened was Dan Patrick finally dropped it.
You're right, but nothing happened in terms of there weren't really any changes to the existing laws pertaining to the hemp industry.
Right. He did the executive order for age right off the bat, which,
Okay, there was that.
But,
But that was the whole narrative the whole time was protecting kids, right?
Correct.
Like with Dan Patrick go around and all these sorts, look how far we are from that school.
Right.
So that was always his
Right.
narrative to begin with.
which is kind of like the hypocrisy of it all is, it's almost amusing at the end of the day where, alcohol are giving him money to ban, cannabis and saying like all the negative effects on it. Well, there's no possible way that it's comparable to alcohol. So, that alone. And then, he had that press conference, I'm sure you saw, where he threw the product at someone. He said, you wouldn't touch that. You have no idea what's in there.
Right.
We actually, I'm not saying we tested that exact sample, but that was Hometown Hero.
Yeah.
And we've tested their product, and they're one of the few clients that do full panels. If you take the package he threw at someone and you read it, it tells you like exactly what's in it. And ingredient wise, and then it'll tell you the potency levels, all your pesticides.
Maybe he
one of the
should've
people that were doing it right,
Maybe he should have grabbed a different product.
Yeah,
or,
true. True.
or a product made by someone else. Let's make a shift over to your company. I want to talk about your company. We only have a few minutes left. But Bluebonnet Labs is still operational. It's here in Dallas, Texas, right?
Yep.
You also made a run in Oklahoma and New Mexico, but those are no longer operational. I believe you sold some assets. And so you're just focused on the Texas market now. Tell me about 2026 goals and tell me about what your vision is on how to grow grow Bluebonnet.
Sure. Well, going back to Governor Abbott, actually, I met with Governor Abbott when all that was going on with, a few other people from the area or from Texas.
Yep.
And I was blown away. It was a really impressive day just to meet him. He was, it was pretty neat meeting the governor.
Yeah.
He, no nonsense, kind of came in and he just asked some really smart questions, like right off the bat, can we regulate this? Is it, going on how to do it. And he generally wants to, you can't go back to where we were. I mean,
Right.
That's not really good for anybody. I think anybody who wants longevity in the Texas cannabis is for testing. Like, I mean, I don't know anybody who wouldn't want, nobody wants to sell this to children. I mean, that's who would want that to begin with. Nobody wants unsafe products out there.
But it cuts both ways. Nobody's promoting the fact that children should be drinking alcohol either.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. We just got so used to.
And it's funny because if you think about it, right? The cannabis industry itself is already stigmatized, right? A lot of history behind it. By having a joint in your hand versus a gummy in your hand versus a beverage in your hand sends three very different messages.
Yeah, good point.
Right?
Yeah.
Because for whatever reasons, it's more socially acceptable to hold a can and hold a beverage in your hand versus a joint in your hand. Even if, let's just say, hypothetically say the cannabinoids are equivalent to each other. One sends one signal, one sends the other. And I think it's just because we've been conditioned to see people drink a beer or hold a can or a Coca-Cola or whatever, and that's become normalized. But you put the same product into a can, that being cannabis, versus a joint or versus a gummy, it's very different for some reason socially.
Yeah, maybe just years of, subconscious, not brainwashing, but like you said, you're just
I think
so
it's
much more
social conditioning.
common. Yeah, conditioning.
Right?
You
Yeah.
better- yeah. You're absolutely right.
So how are you going to grow Bluebonnet, or what's the goal for Bluebonnet long term?
Well, we're just, waiting to see what the state does, and I'm confident, in the discussions with the governor that they're going to get it on track and get it regulated and
Okay.
keep it all in Texas. We just want to be here and make sure people are getting a good, safe product in Texas.
Okay. Do you attend any trade shows?
We do. Yep. We've done quite a few trade shows. I've been I'm doing it all. I've been to a few trade shows. There's the Texas policy one coming up on the 29th that we're going to attend down in Austin.
Yeah.
So we'll go to that one. We did BizCon and a few of those, but right now we're just kind of focused on, we have some good clients. We want to give them, a good turnaround time, give them accurate results, and just, really work with, at the end of the day, we wouldn't turn away clients, but, we really want to have a good core group of clients and just work with them and watch this industry grow. And, hopefully with more regulation, obviously would benefit us, but I think it's better. It benefits the whole group. I mean, at the end of the day, anyone who wants less testing, you may wonder why they're even in this industry to begin with. I wouldn't understand why anybody would have an answer for it. So just really have a good, safe Texas market. And, we'll see what happens too. Like, again, we have a Georgia license, even though, as I was mentioning, each state kind of has their own rules. So, and servicing our clients in other states, but.
Are you looking at growing into Georgia and other states?
No, we want to wait and see what happens in Texas.
Okay.
And then it's tough. Starting a lab it's
and you have a
long
business
process.
partner, right?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
I have one. He's more. I'm certainly more hands-on than he is.
Okay.
But he's got quite a few different businesses. But
Okay.
he's been a great partner. He's always knowing what's going on. Not in the dirt daily as much as I am, but
Right.
yeah, he's certainly. Actually, we spoke today. So
Good. Well, I have two questions to wrap up our session. One, what is the name of your French bulldog?
oh, Buddy.
Buddy's your French bulldog.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so you don't have any kids, but you
That
do
was
have a
that was a
rabbit.
temporary name. My girlfriend was supposed to name him, and I just kept calling him Buddy, and it just
stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People call him Buddy. We would take him around, and other people started calling him Buddy. So yeah.
Okay. And what kind of watch are you wearing there?
It's a Breitling.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a watch connoisseur,
All right, okay.
horologist.
Nice.
And so if I'm not doing this or working or with my kids or working out, I'm usually studying up on watches. So I'm always curious when other people are wearing watches on show.
Gotcha. Nice.
So, well, thanks for making it down. I really enjoyed learning a little bit more about the lab industry, and thanks for sharing your knowledge about your company in the industry. So,
More than welcome.
all right, John. Thanks a lot.
All right.